Today we are once again talking through the dark side of sports card breaking. There's a lot to talk to in this. We're going to range from the manipulation within sports card breaking, where the fraud can occur, poor setups, regulation within the space, how Fanatics can help. All these sorts of things we'll discuss in the video and then obviously talk through them down in the comments below as we always do. Now, to give you guys some context, I had this video recorded. We're planning on releasing it next week. But it turns out today TikTok announced some alarming news, or pretty breaking news, I should say, that they are banning breaking on their platform. TikTok is banning breaking on their platform. I'll say it again. And that meant that I had to come back and re-record because that's a very important talking point. And it's a bit surprising that, I had all these things talked about and then all of a sudden they drop it, right before this video was about to be released. Now, to give some context on the TikTok news up front, this is essentially an example of somebody reaching out to their customer support, and their customer support has shared their updated T's and C's, and they've basically alluded to the fact, that surprise-based products cannot be opened, packaged, or assembled during the live stream, which apparently constitutes sports card breaking because it is essentially a form of gambling. And it basically also goes, the products must be manufactured, sealed, and kept in the original packaging prior to customer receipt, i.e. you have to ship the box to the respective customer, which is pretty alarming news, and it spells, pretty poor news for a lot of people that use TikTok to break cards. And it's a pretty concerning space because when we've talked about this in the past, as you'll see over here, where we flagged this in a video from 9 months ago, I talked through regulation being required, and a lot of people hated on me in the comments on this video. I'm not sure if the comments are still there, but essentially I got grilled, really hard. I didn't delete them if that's what you're wondering, but essentially my reasoning for regulation needing to come in was because, breaking is a space that is ripe, right? Or rife is the word, with manipulation and fraud. And this is not meant to paint a brush on every single person breaking cards. I've talked about how, the barrier to entry to sports card breaking is quite easy. You can just have a phone, you go to your local store, your local card shop, you buy a few boxes, you can sell some spots in your break. And I should clarify, if you're not aware what a sports card break is, it's where somebody has a box of cards and they sell spots that equal certain players, certain teams. And if you have those spots that you've paid for, you're going to get the cards for either of those two scenarios, which often means what? It's essentially gambling. You're more than likely not going to hit anything. And because the barrier to entry is so easy, you've got people that have these poor camera setups. You've got people that have, cards going off screen. They don't really help themselves with regards to ensuring they don't get asked questions, right? Because when you have a breaking setup, everything needs to be sort of immaculate. You can't ever have a card leave the screen. You need to have multiple camera angles because the second that people can ask you a question around, well, that card left the camera, that paints you in a bad look, irrespective of whether you've done something wrong or not. And I talk through, because the barrier to entry is so small, it means people can easily scam others, i.e. take your money and there's really nothing you can do about it, right? They can do scams in multiple different ways. They can pocket cards, they can use sleight of hand to take cards out, they can manipulate how your cards get to certain people within the break, they can manipulate how spots go to certain people, they can pretend that they, use random.org, but they use, the fake version where they can get the breaks and those spots into the hands of their friends or themselves. They can use resealed product. There's all these ways for people to scam the process. And the reason why this gets a little bit more alarming is because breaking happens, directly to your home. And because it has, this gambling element to it, a lot of these breakers also prey on the degeneracy of some of us gamblers, right? I'm a gambler to an extent. So they prey on that mindset, right? They know you want one more box. So you'll go into these live streams. And again, this does not go to every breaker. It's just a select few ruining it for everyone. But you go to these live streams and you'll hear the way these, breakers will talk to their customers, and they'll talk to how they want to get them to buy one more box. Just buy one more box. It's almost like a drug dealer's relationship with a customer, right? They're trying to make sure you maintain, or you need that hit to keep coming back. And they sort of, manipulate things. And it's a really poor thing because it does require some form of structure to make sure that things operate smoothly. And I said in my video 9 months ago that I was very shocked that there wasn't any regulation to date in this space because it's so alarming, right? The things that can go wrong, and they go very, very wrong when they do go wrong. And you've got other spaces that do have regulation that operate very similarly, but they don't have the eyes that, sports card breaking do, or vice versa, if you know what I mean. So it's a pretty crazy thing. And the fact that you've now got TikTok coming out and banning this to try and protect themselves because their legal department have told them to, because they're maybe somewhat liable in terms of gambling regulations, that's a big thing. And in my opinion, are we going to see something similar from Whatnot? Probably, in some capacity. I think we will. And it goes to things like, people will say, well, what are these, regulators going to do? They don't care about sports card. Well, they do, right? In Australia, as an example, and I copped some heat for mentioning Australia in the past, but there's Facebook groups that do razzes, right? Where they'll raffle off spots, essentially a sports card break. Those things get shut down by our regulator all the time. Australia's gambling regulation is quite tough, even though we do have a lot of casinos and poker machines and stuff like that around the country. But you guys get the point. There's eyes that want the tax revenue on this sort of thing. And the fact that you've got people bypassing essentially this regulation and manipulating customers is not a good look. And I think Fanatics are probably doing things in the back end that is going to mean the end for people like Whatnot, right? People like YouTube breaking. Because I have very little doubt that if they do want to target their own streaming platform, and if you weren't aware, Fanatics want to have a streaming platform where people bust the product. And if you want to, buy a product for Fanatics, you have to bust on their platform, right? If you want to be a group breaker, you have to buy it directly from them. You have to use their platform, is essentially where the rumors are going. And I think it's not just going to be having to buy the product from them if you want to be a breaker. I think Fanatics will have some other rules and stipulations in place to try and bring some sort of, regulation to the space, even if it's not government intervention, right? I think they'll have things like, if you want to be a group breaker, you need to have, certain clarity on your videos, i.e. it has to be 4K. You need to have a certain number of cameras set up. You need to have a certain number of microphones. Cards can never leave the image, never leave the frame. All these sorts of things, I think Fanatics will basically mandate the people that want to use their platform. And that should mean we should see less, hanky-panky scams happening within the platform. But again, it's a good first step with regards to regulation in the space, making sure it's standardized, making sure things are done right without government intervention. Ideally, you don't want really any government intervention in this space, but if you've got, so many bad things that are happening and you've got these people now that are manipulating and scamming the system, that might be something that has to come into effect down the line. So if Fanatics want to invest that much money into the space of sports card breaking, that tells me that they're probably going in some capacity to work with regulators to make sure the platform has no questions being asked of them. The fact that we're seeing TikTok have to do this, right, due to legal constraints, tells me that there's some conversations happening in the back end where somebody has complained. That means the eyes are starting to come onto these kinds of spaces. And again, this is not meant to paint a bad brush for all sports card breakers, because there are a lot out there that do the right thing by their customers. Like I've heard, Cherry Collectibles talk in the past where they offer sort of a helpline for customers that say, you know what, okay, I'm spending a little bit too much money. Can you please ban me from entering your breaks? And Cherry Collectibles facilitate that for them. There's other breakers that do the same sort of thing where they track, the amount of money that individuals are spending. And if they go through a period where they're not really hitting any cards, these breakers will say, like, I don't think you should buy into my spot tonight. And they'll sort of not allow them to do that. Whereas you've got some breakers out there that do the complete opposite, and they want to leverage and essentially put their foot on the customer's throat to get them to keep giving them more money, right? They want to keep buying in and keep giving them that little bit of a hit to get them to keep coming back, right? The good breakers don't do that. And like I said a bit earlier, it's the bad breakers that ruin it for everyone, because they're the ones that do the bad deeds, like platinum card breaks where they take cards off the screen and pretend to keep them. They burn cards on camera. They manipulate spots. You've got these rumors around backyard breaks with regards to the dealing of cards for the spots, right? If you know anything about card tricks or anything like that, sleight of hand is not that difficult to do. Now, I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but those are the questions that can be asked. You've got these duck races that happen now, all these kinds of things that happen that raise so many questions. It's not operating as professional as it should be. Sports card breaking has a lot of money in it these days. It is not operating anywhere near the level that it should be in terms of making sure things are done correctly. It's essentially the Wild Wild West, I think, is how I referred to it, when I did that video 9 months ago. It is the Wild Wild West. These guys take the piss with the approach. So I think it's a dark piece of the hobby, similar to what we talked about the other day, that does not get talked about enough. These breakers that have these big platforms are manipulating things to try and paint it as if it's all daisies and roses, like I explained with regards to, investing in prospects and speculation in my video the other day. It's just really disappointing to see, and it's good to see we've finally got a platform like TikTok doing something about it. And I really hope in some capacity that we see Whatnot do something about it. Now, again, I know there's lots of revenue streams there for people that are doing the right thing. So not necessarily see Whatnot ban it, but at least Whatnot work with regulators to make sure that it's okay. Implement some sort of T's and C's with regards to their, legal requirements to make sure they're safe from that perspective. Because the way things are going, it's prime for a regulator to come in and tear the industry to shreds. And if you're somebody that's in the breaking space and you're not already thinking about these things, you should be very concerned about your business moving forward, in my opinion. Fanatics, like I said a little bit earlier, are probably doing the right things to come in and make sure this gets done right. But again, don't hold your breath. If you're in this space and you want to be around the long term and you're one of these good guys that are doing things the right way, start thinking about other avenues for you to sell your breaks. Start thinking about other avenues for you to ensure that you don't get caught out with regards to this loss of revenue, because it is coming. TikTok is not going to be the last one to ban this sort of thing. Mark my words. It's a space that is so prime for regulation. It's going to come in. They want your tax dollar in this space. And more importantly, it's not just to get a tax dollar, like I said a bit earlier. They want to come in and make sure that customers are not getting ripped off. There's people, citizens out there that are being scammed left, right, and center. They want to make sure that this stuff has appropriate stranglehold on it. And let's sort of see what happens next. Now, hopefully, you know, that video was easy to follow. I feel like I was talking very, very fast, as I always do. I feel like I was talking a lot. But essentially, the dark side of sports card breaking is something else within the hobby that I think does not get talked about anywhere near enough. So hopefully you liked the video. Please, like I said, leave a comment down below so we can take the discussion one step further. I just think this is a really dark space within the hobby that, again, does not get talked about anywhere near enough or as much as it should be. The spotlight doesn't get shone on this as much as it should be. And I really hope that, you know, this stuff from TikTok is probably the sign of things to come with, you know, these businesses starting to take things a little bit more seriously. Like I alluded to with how Fanatics can make this a little bit better earlier. I really hope that Fanatics can do the right thing in this space and make sure that things are done correctly. Let's sort of watch this space. Like I said, leave a comment down below and thanks for watching. Cheers.